Welcome to the Richmond Film Network Podcast, your all-access pass to the world of independent cinema. Each week, we go beyond the credits and sit down with the creatives who turn vision into reality. Tune in weekly to find out who's on the RFN Pod.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another RFN podcast. I am your guest host, Zakiya Roberts, and I'm so excited to be joined by Miss Emily Draper. Quick little info about Miss Emily. She is a queer Brooklyn-based writer and director with a background in comedy. Love that. UCB, Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and some commercial work. Love that. Make that money, girl. She loves creating highly specific worlds, finding humor in painfully relatable moments, and exploring stories where, get this, guys, women unleash their weirdest and worst selves. We need a round of applause for that. Here to discuss her directorial debut, Sorority Court. Give a warm round of applause to Miss Emily Draper.
Hey, girl. Hey. Hello. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I loved the film. And I think you and I can have a very layered and interesting conversation about this film. The notes that I got said that this was based on real stuff. So I don't know exactly how much you're connected to what part of the story. I would love to talk about that. But I have some of my own sorority experiences.
Yes.
So we could just dive right in.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So William and Mary is where you went to college. Tell us a little bit more about how this was conceived from a real world experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did go to William and Mary, and I was a sorority girl. One of my favorite parts of being on this film festival tour, to be honest, is just connecting with others, former sorority girls, current sorority girls, and just being like, wasn't that weird? Or also, wasn't that fun?
Great. Yeah.
And I think the reason I chose the sorority world for the topic of this film is because I had never seen my experience accurately represented. Because the truth is, I met like a lot of extremely cool women in my sorority who I am still friends with today. They were very smart, very funny, very shrewd. And also, we met each other within this very hierarchical, patriarchal, corporate structure that is Greek life. So I really wanted to see that represented in a funny way in film.
That is so smart. And it's not a lot of people that I think, especially sorority girls, being one myself, that think about it from that very layered perspective that, yes, there's this like element of female sisterhood and togetherness and all of that, but like looking at the structures within that, where that's created and kind of like, what are we reinforcing? What are we cracking through? Kind of both sides of it. I love that. Sororities are often portrayed with clichés in media. So what did you specifically want to do differently with this film? And do you feel like you accomplished that or not?
That's such a good question. I agree. Sororities are portrayed with a lot of cliches. And I put those cliches in two categories. One cliche is the cattiness and bitchiness. And I did want to speak to that. And there is a lot of cattiness and bitchiness in Sorority Court, but I think it's really motivated by intense emotional turmoil and the honestly very high stakes of the collegiate environment. So it felt to me less like cattiness for cattiness' sake, more like real people having a high stakes, difficult experience. And I think something else that sorority cliches fall into is their like sorority girls' relationship with men, whatever that, and whatever context you want to interpret that. And I was less interested in talking about that. There are no men in Sorority Court. They are simply not featured. That was just a part of the story I wasn't really interested in engaging with.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I mean, people will say, like, is it realistic to have a film where you don't have men? But one, it's a short. And two, I'm not going to lie. One of the things that I loved about being in a sorority was how female centric my world was when I was immersed in that time. So quite actually, yes. When you're in sorority life, you can look around and there can be an entire day where you're like not in the male world. And so I
Yeah.
just love that, artistically, you're like, yeah, they don't serve a point in this story, so we
No.
don't really need to see them. But I also love what you said at the beginning, just in thinking about the patriarchal structure and the institutions and, confines with which the Greek life is built, that there is kind of this looming idea of maleness that's not visible, but it's very present just in all of our systems. So, sometimes you just got to tuck stuff into the art. Tell everyone what Sorority Court is about. Give our listeners an overview of what it's about. And then I would love for you to expand on like how much is true to life and where do you fall in?
Absolutely. So, big picture, Sorority Court is a comedic crime drama that takes place within a sorority. So, it is a trial, and the person on trial is Katie, who is an ex-president of the sorority who's been accused of stealing really petty small items from the chapter house. But the stakes are very high because William and Mary alums will know there is an honor code where if you lie, cheat, or steal, you are expelled. It's a very harsh student legal system. So my experience with this is I honestly very randomly was in chapter leadership in my sorority. And I do like to say I didn't run for office. You get nominated and sort of are voluntold to do that task.
Voluntold?
So I was privy to a lot of little dramas that occurred within the sorority, many of which sort of take place within the legal framework of the sorority and the legal framework of William and Mary more broadly. I believe at William and Mary and UVA, there's an honor code body where you like hire a student lawyer to defend you if you're like accused of one of these crimes. Yeah, there's so much like legal drama actually happening with these like 18 and 19-year-olds that you might not know about if you weren't involved in the system firsthand.
Absolutely not. This is a podcast, a true crime podcast.
Exactly.
First of all, can I just touch on this code? Because there's a line in the film where they reference the code about the lying, cheating, or stealing. But they kind of make a joke that like, it's interesting that they don't mention murder. Like, I guess you could kill somebody and nobody's going to expel you. But if you lie, cheat, or steal, you're out of here, buddy. And I had no idea. I just thought that was all in there for comedic effect. But to know that that's an actual honor code, that's such an interesting thing. And the fact that you know that that's potentially UVA too, I'm like, is this because it's Virginia, like a Southern kind of more conservative schools, Christian, like what would be the background of that? But it's so interesting. I thought that would have maybe been a sorority code, but that you're saying that's the university code.
It's the university code. I think it's something that goes back to Jefferson, like Thomas Jefferson, like that old.
Wowza.
And the writer Gia Tolentino writes about this in her time at UVA in one of her books. And she points out so astutely, and I straight up stole this in the film also. She points out that you can't lie, cheat, or steal, but they say nothing about rape. And that is kind of an issue on campuses. And I'm not trying to take that on, but I do think it's just an interesting legal thing in these old institutions.
Wow. Talk about systems that need to be broken down and restructured. Like, these are the three things that'll really get you in trouble. But if you murder someone or rape someone, we'll talk about it. I mean, I'm not saying that, but like that's and it's, there's a lot of violence against women on campuses. Anyone who's gone to any university knows that. So it's just kind of crazy when you think about how outdated a lot of
100%.
rules are.
Yeah.
Well, I think you did personally a really great job of poking fun at the cliches in Sorority Court without making light of the sisterhood that does exist. Because remind me again, what are my two main characters are? What are their names?
There's Katie, who's sort of the ex-president and defendant, and then there's her best friend Amina.
Yeah, their relationship is actually really grounded and it feels real. And you get that there's like a bond. Emily does this thing where they kind of communicate without speaking words. And that's such a thing that really close girlfriends can do. Like when you really know somebody, like you can look at them and we've said a whole sentence. And I love how you kind of played that up as almost like a superpower.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's lots of fun to be poked at things. So many little ways that you found comedy, but we're still able to show like, yeah, but there's real solid relationships here. I'm not going to just make it catty and girl fight and whatever. Like there was a great balance of that. There's an undercurrent of power dynamics and accountability here. Were you aiming for a deeper critique of institutions like sororities? Or were you more interested in the character drama or both? And kind of expand on that.
That is such a good question. I think a thing I say a lot about the film is that one of the big themes is how accountability often can still exist even when a justice system fails. So what we see in this trial is, yeah, the justice system does fail, but the perpetrator of crimes is still punished via, in my opinion, I mean, this is sort of a spoiler, but, losing that amazing telepathic friendship and losing that trust. Like that is a horrible punishment for what Katie has done. In terms of whether or not I wanted to critique sororities in Greek life broadly, I was less interested in making a statement about whether or not sororities should exist. I think my point of view on that is, well, they do exist. And I experienced them like this, and I'm going to talk about it. And I think there are flaws and idiosyncrasies about how sororities work that are explored in the film. But yeah, I don't really take a broader stance on Greek life. If a viewer walks away with that, that's totally cool with me. But yeah.
I love, since we're just going here now with the spoilers, I do really love that her actual punishment is really deeper and more impactful than a potential. I mean, an expulsion or something obviously can change your whole college trajectory. But like we always say in a car accident, things are replaceable, but the people's lives and relationships, I tend to think of as like your life with other people, not so easy to replace.
Yeah.
When you break trust with someone and you lose that connection, there's a lot more work to get that. So it was an interesting ending. And I immediately thought this could be a series. Like I'm actually interested in the inner world of these characters. I don't think that is your intent, but would that be something you'd be willing to explore?
Well, funny you should say that, because I originally wrote Sorority Court as a pilot to be a kind of comedic crime procedural. And the way it would work and the way the end of the pilot episode works is that Katie becomes a fifth year senior. So she's punished in more ways than one. Don't worry. She becomes a fifth year senior, and she becomes essentially a public defender for other students that find themselves in the crosshairs of the collegiate legal system.
I love this.
Yeah, and I was excited by that idea because I think a lot of crime dramas or crime comedies was what this would be, take the point of view of the prosecutor. My sister is a public defender, and there are a lot of litigators in my family, not me. So the question of like defense and punishment and accountability, those questions are very interesting to me, and that's what we explore in the pilot and potentially the series.
Oh, look at that. I knew I was on to something. I just thought, and it was, written and directed beautifully.
Thank you.
I'm laughing. I'm kind of going on this ride. And then at the end, I feel this kind of gut punch, and I'm immediately drawn in and I want to know more. But I love knowing that is exactly where you were headed.
Yeah.
I would be a total binger. And because you give an opportunity to poke fun, but also shed some light and explore more themes of accountability and relationships. It's kind of like Legally Blonde, but with more relevant current grit, like something to kind of get into it.
Yeah.
So you have a background in comedy, as I mentioned earlier. Tell us a bit about that, because just quickly, I am a burgeoning writer director. Just finished my
Nice.
first short, penning it, and it's supposed to be dramatic. And I find myself writing jokes, and I'm like, this is not supposed to be funny, even though there's comedy throughout life. But I'm wondering, do you only write comedy? How much does your comedy background and training influence your writing? Do you have to go back and re-edit, like, this is not funny enough, I'm doing too much funny? Like, speak to your comedic experience and how that influences your work, specifically this one.
That's a great question. Also, congratulations on writing your script.
Thank you.
I started doing comedy when I was in college. I did stand-up in college, and I was in a sketch comedy group. And that was like a hugely influential experience for me. So when I graduated and moved to New York, I started taking a million classes at the Magnet Theater and the UCB Theater. And eventually I got on a house team and I had the indie team. Like, this was my whole life pre-pandemic. And it was so fun. And I want to just say, maybe for listeners who are curious about comedy, I was not good. I must say that. Like, I was not like amazing at this. But I just found like the community so fun. And the best part was when I was on a house team, the writers' meetings. You would bring your sketch in, a director would give you notes, like, we're all riffing. That was a big part of the fabric of my life through my entire 20s. But when the pandemic happened, that all sort of ground to a halt. And also, I didn't really feel funny anymore. And also, I had this huge boon in that I sort of changed jobs and joined a company that was more production focused. So I was like, okay, the stars have aligned for me to sort of switch gears from live comedy into something more video based. And then I started writing Sorority Court, and yeah, I really struggled at times with, like, is this dramatic? I think the crime procedural genre is typically dramatic, so it felt quite odd sometimes to make it a comedy. But I really relied on my network of comedian friends to help me punch it up and be like, what is this to you? And I also have a lot of comedian friends who are also former sorority girls. So we could kind of talk about, like, what was this experience funny, or was it not funny fundamentally? Can it be both? And my network was hugely, hugely helpful for me in that.
Oh, I love that you're speaking to community and network, because I think so often, and this is definitely speaking from my heart based on what Emily just said, to all the aspiring filmmakers who are staring at a blinking cursor and intimidated because they know they have a story, but to get it on the page is a different thing. Then once you get it on the page and you feel so great, you got to get notes. You got to get feedback. You have to let people, it feels like a solo journey sometimes as a writer until you bring other people in. And it's imperative that you have a community that you can trust, that actually can give you feedback that's helpful. And so it's amazing that you had so many different outlets for that. I love how you transitioned from pre-pandemic to post-pandemic, because our industries underwent a lot of change. If you did anything live, it was just complete. Yeah. But I love, and now look, we have you to watch on screen, and it's amazing. So can I just get into, how did you go about casting? Because these people were like top tier talent. I had to Google people. I was like, are these people all on television shows? They were so good.
Yeah. The talent is one of the best things about this, I think. And just to speak to their ability a little bit more, like, we were so crunched for time on this set. So certain people, their close-up was one take. Like, I will shout out Puhu Verma's close-up was just one. And we were like, okay, we simply have to move on. But also, it was an amazing performance. So I did feel confident moving on. But yeah, it was amazing talent. And I think the first person I cast was Mia Rose Kavensky, who's an amazing actor and also a producer with experience in crowdfunding. So even before I had the budget for this, I had Mia on board, and because I was sort of like, I really fundamentally don't know how to make this happen, and I think you do. And so she was Katie from the jump, and I think she brought a lot of, I love what she brings to it. She's a very playful actor, in my opinion. And she brought, like, playfulness, but also like a real grit and meanness
Yes.
that the
Yes.
character really needs. So Mia was the first person we cast. And then from that point forward, we used an amazing casting director named Allison Twardziak, who put us in contact with these other actors. And I also just need to shout out, this was during the SAG strike. So there were a lot of amazing actors available. And that was just like a lucky thing that happened. But yeah, Kuhu Verma, Sarah Coffey, Lori Lang, and Carolyn Kang, who is also just a friend who I'd met through commercial work. They're excellent. They blew me away at every turn. Honestly, very little direction was needed on my part.
Wow. Oh, when you talked about earlier about the universe kind of aligning everything to make you pivot. Talk about having everything aligned
I
with the
know.
strike when actors
Yeah.
are looking for work, and then kind of just finding your Katie, but who's also really good at crowdfunding and the perfect balance of like grit and playfulness. And she does this little thing up her best friend's shoulder. And I was like, how many
Yes.
times did they take that? Just like little things, because I'm an actor first. So to watch actors play and give each other things to play with in real time, but to find out that you were doing some of these things in one take. So talk to me about the crunch. You wrote this script and you started galvanizing a crew. Initially, what would you have put out for how long you think this is going to take? And then how long did it actually take? What was the crunch time about?
I think if I did it all again, I would love to have had just one more day. We did this in 2 days. And it was just 2 locations. So it was doable. It was doable. But it was really budget constraints. People gotta eat, you gotta pay people, and people are also doing great work and they deserve to be paid. So yeah, we just don't have that much time, and it was a limited crew. Like we had excellent grip and gaffer, but it was just these 2 guys moving every light, and that stuff just takes time moving from scene to scene. So yeah, that was definitely the crunch of it all, was time. And then it was all shot in Washington Heights, New York, at this excellent church that Mia found after probably calling over 100 churches. And then it happened at my friend's apartment. So that company move from church to apartment was also a company move. It's always hard. It's never easy. It's never easy.
Oh my goodness. For film newbie listeners out there, that's literally when we have to pack up everything, every light, every person to another location. And that takes time.
Yeah.
So wait, Mia also was location scouting?
Oh yeah. We were both. In the beginning, it was just me and Mia. And I'll shout out my other producer, MJ Bernier, who's also excellent. So MJ and Mia were sort of collabing on the location scouting. You'd think maybe that a church would be easy to find just because there are many churches in New York, but they know what they have and they really charge a lot.
And girl, you shot in New York, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, New York and LA, and at this point, even Atlanta, they know where they're located. Now, if you had come on down here to Virginia, girl, you could have found you a church and they may have been like, oh, just, provide food for the homeless next week and you can use our church for 2 days. But yes, in New York City, premium prices. I will say, though, the church was awesome.
Yeah.
Like aesthetically. And then now you're telling me that your lighting department was 2 guys.
Yeah.
The lighting in that church was perfect.
Yeah.
Everyone was clearly lit. It was moody. It set the tone. I mean, you really killed that. So talk about everybody working together to collab and create something that like your vision just came true. So, 100%. I mean, that should honestly be a podcast title, Just One More Day, because I don't know one independent film that doesn't wish they had just one more shoot day. What specific things do you feel like if you had gotten that dream wish of day, you would have gone in for? Tighter shots or retake or additional scenes? Was there more?
It's a great question. I thought about this before we went on today. If I had had one more day, I would have done blocking in location, in costume, without the crew in the room. The crew, I love you. You're wonderful. But it is really hard to act, and it's very delicate and requires a lot of vulnerability and like taking a chance and maybe looking stupid. And I think if I had done it again, I wish I had given the actors an opportunity to like use the space, feel the space, like block it live before we started shooting.
So that would be probably one of your directorial debut takeaways, is that making sure that you find time for private rehearsal with your actors. Like
100%. Put it in the schedule.
Yeah, if possible, like almost a has to be, because I mean, as the director, you and the actors are doing a dance and you want to give them as much space to create as you had to write and are now directing. So I really respect that about you. But I will say, not knowing that you would like that or felt like you needed that or didn't have that, I mean, the shot choices, the movement, even when I can't remember with her, Grace, when she leaves the stage and is like to the bathroom and like she walks behind them. Like, I'm trying to think of the different movements I saw. Nothing about that felt like, oh, they probably wanted to shoot that differently. Everything just worked. It felt very grounded in reality, like we're just in this moment. Those shots of Sarah, I think that's her real name, but I can't remember her character's name.
Oh, Jessie.
Yes. At the beginning where she's like pleading her case and it's like but just so comedic. She was genius in that monologue.
She is so
actors who bring your words to life that way. I mean, were you just having a panic attack, like a good one, watching her bring what you said to life like that? It was hilarious. How do you feel as a director when you get to watch that?
I was choking down my laughter at the monitor. Like, and she was sort of being funny every second of the whole shoot day. Like, she would sort of like come out in a costume and be like, sort of say the funniest thing. And I was like, is that something? Yeah, it is. I really love comedic actors. They really bring so much energy to everything they touch. And I appreciate you, comedic actors of the world.
Oh, man. And you comedic writers and directors who give them so much great material. Nothing's better than for an actor when you have a funny scene and everyone's breath is held until they yell cut and then people burst into laughter. It's like, you know, you got a good
Yes.
Did you have a storyboard in advance for how you wanted to shoot this?
I did. I draw my storyboards myself. It's a big, very laborious part of my process that I'm kind of revising as I move forward because it's so insanely laborious that I'm like, part of the reason I do it is to sort of justify my role as director. So like I can enter every shot being like, actually, I've drawn it out. I have a plan. And I would like to become a director who doesn't feel the need to do that and who can sort of like respond in the moment to what's happening. But at the same time, they are really helpful, like for everybody. Like, I think the production designer liked seeing what I had in mind. I think when we were like shopping for costumes, we had like a thing to look at. It helped us find locations because I had like very specific like shots in mind that required certain kinds of spaces. So storyboarding, necessary, time-consuming evil, I say at this point in my career.
I love that you were so honest about that. And I think that a lot of writers who want to maybe direct, and I'm speaking for myself and for other people I'm working with and have worked with, I don't know if storyboarding and how they want to go about that process is something they really put a lot of thought into. So hearing you talk about how it's so laborious in your particular process and knowing that this is your debut and you're kind of finding your process as a director. When you say drawing, are you using like digital drawing? Okay. I was like, she's not sitting there with a sketch pad. That would be the wildest practical back in the day. Okay. But that's amazing. And I do want to say to you, it's called the director for a reason. So it's not really about coming in and, you know, not giving anyone leeway, but if you come in with a plan that clear, like you said, everyone feels like they know the direction they're going. And then being able to call audibles in the moment and make changes and be malleable. I think that's maybe what you're talking about. So did you find shots on the days that you did not anticipate and like, ooh, what if we went in? Or did you pretty much stick to your laborious task storyboard results?
I wish I could tell you that we had a lot. We had certain discoveries along the way, but it was mostly in the boards.
Love it.
And one last thing I'll add about the boards is one reason I like them is that, maybe you, the actors, and the DP know exactly what's happening in the scene. But how about the PA? They might have no idea, and they're more empowered to help you if
Mm-hmm.
they haven't like a rough image of what's even happening in the scene.
Absolutely. There's again being the director. Every down to the most varied position, like a PA who pretty much is
Yeah,
responsible for doing all kinds of things. Everyone on your set knowing what's going on really does make for a more well-run set, especially independent, smaller
yeah,
crews. Essentially, we're all collabing here. Everybody's
yeah,
kind of a filmmaker. So I appreciate that. I'm hoping that one day, like you and I will work together because you got a great
absolutely.
energy. And I'm all
Oh,
about
thank
the
you.
female writer directors.
Too.
So are you able to tell us what your budget was, or you not want to talk budget? Okay, yeah, I
Oh
would
no,
love to know.
I really think that budget transparency, that's something I wish was more of a
Talked
normal
about.
thing in
Absolutely.
the industry. So as I mentioned, I crowdfunded for this, and I was able to crowdfund using Seed and Spark. And I was able to make about $15,000 on that, and I put in
Nice.
about 5,000 of my own. So all in 20 grand, which is a lot.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a lot. Like in the grand scheme of movie making, it's a drop in the bucket. But as an
Yeah.
independent filmmaker, that is a lot of money.
Yeah. It really
I
is.
mean, and you have to figure out how to stretch that. So, did you
Yeah.
have a line producer? Were you kind of doing that job, or did you have that for someone else?
My saviors here were MJ Bernier and Mia Rose Kavinsky, aka Katie. They were excellent in just negotiating equipment. Because I work in the commercial world, I did have certain connections, like I could use a camera for free, which is like a
Mm-hmm.
huge boon. Um, but yeah, negotiating day rates and stuff like that was all MJ. Other equipment, like locations, they were the handlers of the money. I wrote the check.
I love that. Man, if you are listening and you want to make films, find people who can do the things that you are not necessarily great at yet or don't have any interest in doing
Yeah.
and work well together with them. Because just the fact that you had these kind of like two people flanked at your sides, helping you forge through the process so you could focus on creative and other things,
Yeah.
so important.
100%.
So this was a 2-day shoot. Wish it would have been 3.
Yeah.
How long did you spend on post?
So we shot it in October 2023, and it was totally wrapped by April 1st, 2024. So I was sort of combo approach. I did an assembly cut to save a little money that was like painful to watch,
You did
and
it yourself?
I did it myself.
Okay, girl.
Yeah,
Multi-talents.
and you kind of sort of have to. I mean,
Have to.
yeah, but I also just have to point out the assembly cut was not so good. But then I handed it off to an editor who was good, John O'Neill, and he made a lot of choices, and we sort of did it all back and forth virtually. He was one of my friends from my college sketch comedy group who was also an editor. Um, yeah, and Tyler Clark, who is the DP, was also the colorist, which is sort of a cool combo. I think that's nice that the
Yeah.
DP can like see
Awesome.
their vision through.
That's amazing. And I love that you were able to use someone that you knew from school before, but virtually. You don't
Yeah,
have to physically these days be in the same location as your editor. You can go back and forth and discuss changes and cuts. So that's brilliant. And I do think, just like we were talking about the storyboards, rough or not, you giving an assembly cut as the writer director, you knew what the story you wanted to tell, and you're kind
yeah,
of able to give them the blueprint, and then they go in and like do it the good way. But you know
yeah,
what I mean? So I think that's awesome that you knew enough about editing to do that. It just goes to show in filmmaking today, there's no rules. Kind of like the wild, wild west. You can really jump out there and just try stuff that you
yeah.
don't know and see. Yeah, as long as you have a great team around you, which it seems like you did.
I did.
And so your crew size total and cast size total was how many? I always like to give our listeners an idea of just what goes on behind the scenes that we don't see when we watch the film.
Great point. Cast was 5, which is kind of a lot for a short film,
Yeah.
honestly. That's definitely an ensemble cast. And crew, I wish I had a better answer for you. I'm going to say roughly 15 people.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's maybe 10. But yeah,
On,
something in that
for
neighborhood.
both days? All there
Yeah,
for both days?
all there
Wow.
for both days. Yeah.
And did you shoot on the weekend?
No,
Probably not a church, right?
because of the church. I so wanted to shoot on the weekend, and then like honestly, more late that you would even imagine. I was like, oh my God, they're doing church. And so yeah, I had to be like, actually, it's gonna be Thursday, Friday.
I love it. Like last minute, wait, we can't use the church. It's a Sunday.
Yeah.
So now I would love to know, what are any personal or interpersonal or tech challenges that you had from the start, like in the conception of the idea to post challenge, like one big one that stands out to you, and then one triumph, like maybe something you didn't expect through the process that you feel really proud of or good. I mean, obviously you made a film, it's a thing, that's the triumph, but anything more specific in there.
That's a great question. And I think that they're both kind of the same thing. So
Intermingled.
yeah, when we had the assembly cut, there's this shot of 2 sorority composites, which is like a giant photo, a giant picture of all the members of the sorority. And the viewer is supposed to take away a ton of information from these 2 shots of the composite. But visually it's sort of funny, like it's actually kind of impossible to take away any information from the composites because it's a picture of 200 women. It's just like too much for the brain to compute. And in the assembly cut, I was like, man, these shots are really not working. And when I showed early cuts to people, everybody was like, yeah, I got nothing from that. So I was feeling really down about that. I find editing to be pretty depressing because you realize that like what's done is done. But Mia was like, no, just relax. We'll figure this out.
I love Mia. Shout out to Mia.
Shout out to Mia
and MJ,
and MJ.
Okay.
But she was like, I think there's a VFX solution. Like she had this idea to make the main portrait in the photo, which is Katie, the president, sort of come alive and speak to her for a second, which is kind of a bit of a VFX lift. And I didn't really expect this to be like a VFX heavy movie. I didn't expect to have any magical or surreal moments in the movie, but then we did it and we had to do some like pickups. So it was kind of laborious, but it was worth it. And like, it's one of the things that I think people kind of like, and it does set the tone with Katie's relationship to herself, which is kind of helpful for reading the whole movie.
So prior to this moment, what was the shot? We saw all of the faces on the poster in equal weight. It wasn't the kind of like zoomed into the presidents the way that we saw it.
It was, yes, we had it in wide, which was like insane.
Not helpful,
that we can't get anything from that. We also had it in close up where the idea, it was like a whip hand down. You see Katie was the president in 2016 and Amina is the president in 2017. But even so, it was like hard to get information from these like still photos. So animating Katie implies that she had fallen from grace more effectively than that previous shot.
I felt like I got that information instantaneously. So the changes, that was definitely a great challenge and triumph. That's kind of the same thing, 2 sides of the same coin, because I immediately like kind of understood who this character is and what's going on with who's currently in and I'm like, okay, I see that there's a fall from grace here. I tend to not read log lines before I watch stuff. I can go in blind and see if it comes up for me. And I went backwards with yours and was like, yeah, that's exactly what that was about. Great log line. So what would you say is the thought element of your piece, like the think thing that you would want viewers to take away? Like, yes, it's funny and you poke fun at things, but there are messages and themes that you explore, is there like one underlying thought element for the piece that you want it to say?
It's a great question. And I think I'm going to answer it with a question because I don't exactly know the answer to this. But a question I
Okay.
think about a lot is it possible to have accountability without punishment?
Mm.
Because no spoilers, but yeah, a perpetrator of the crime technically goes unpunished within their justice system, but she also like loses something, maybe something that was the most valuable thing to her. So I don't know what the answer to that question is. It's something I still think about and I'm not sure about.
Yeah, I actually think that the question you posed is the thought element, right? Because a lot of
Yeah,
times what you want people to walk away with is not the thing, but it's to question something, to think further about something, and to kind of ponder it and converse about it. And then they start like a blog online or a X thread or whatever, and everybody's talking about the theme behind your piece. So I think that's great. Let's talk a bit about what you are working on currently. Sorority Court is amazing, okay, but Emily is already working on other projects. We have Farther Along, which is a family sitcom. Is that a pilot?
that's right. That's a
Okay.
pilot. Um, I'm anticipating that hitting the festival network in early 2026, but that's another real Virginia story. That's written by Blair
Oh,
Payton, who's one of my dearest friends and is from Roanoke and is sort of about his experience of his dad moving in with him. His dad, who's a preacher, moves in with his gay son, and how the community sort of reacts after his mother's death.
is this based in Virginia, like in the story?
Yes, it's in Roanoke in the
Oh, that
story.
should be really interesting. So
Yeah,
you didn't write that one.
I did not. It was my first time directing something that I hadn't written.
So do you mind telling us a little about that experience and how different that might be from directing your own words? I was just having this conversation with a writer friend the other day. I'm wondering, is it more or less rewarding, more or less challenging? What would you say your differences would be?
I think a hard part for me was when you're directing something that you didn't write, you so badly want to add value to the
Mm,
situation. So
mhm.
it's easy to be a little overzealous and be like, and also, what if it was this? Like, when really a light touch is all it takes.
Mhm.
And I think our most important and effective conversations between writer and director were, what's the main idea of the scene? What do you want an audience to feel in the scene? And then as the director, you can take that and be like, how can I use the camera? How can I use the lighting? How can I use my film language to bring forward this writer's intention?
Absolutely. That's a beautiful way to look at it. And I know, I think the way you just described that is almost how people watch content these days. And like, why didn't they do that? And if they could done this, and like when you see something that's already got value, you just kind of, we're all artists and creators in our own right. So we all have like
Yeah,
ideas. And as a director, you want to do it justice. You want to
yeah,
bring their vision forward. And you're like, and this would make it even more clear. And you're right. A light touch is a perfect way to describe it because if you're dealing with something that's already well written, it's probably the vision is already kind of there. But that is so interesting that you have a directorial debut and you're already moved on to directing other people's work. That's amazing. But then there is The Storm Surge Killed My Sex Drive. Love the title. Who wrote that? This is a short or a full?
I it exists as a short today, but I'm
Okay.
also writing it as a feature.
Mm,
I It's something that I started writing as a short, and I sort of stumbled upon ideas that felt maybe too big for the scope of a short. So it
okay.
would be my first feature, trying to write it by November 28th. It's going okay.
You can do it. You can do it.
Thanks.
um, So let's now do a little quick lightning round of questions just to
Awesome.
lighten up. Um, if Sorority Court had a theme song, what would it be?
Ooh. Funny, my DP asked me this. I would say Head Cheerleader by Pom Pom Squad.
Why does that feel perfect? I'm about to put that on my Apple playlist.
It's a
Why?
cool song. It's a great song. And I love the aesthetics of the song because it's like very girly, but also it really has like a harshness and like a grit to it, just
Perfect
musically.
juxtaposition. Yeah.
And it is about like jealousy and desire. It's a queer song, so it's sort of a jealousy and desire in a different way. But I think jealousy and desire is a big part of what's happening in these relationships.
And those are definitely universal themes. So I'm with that. Okay, who is the most inspiring person you've ever worked with in any capacity, not just directing?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the director I look up to the most right now is Karen Kusama. I just love like the themes of her work, how she's like a little bit gritty and a rock and roll, but also girly. And I think she has a lot to say as a director. And I think she's an expert in motion and camera motion and blocking and choreo. And those are honestly just things I want to work on.
Do you know if she has a DP that she consistently works with?
Great question.
I'm always curious about that when I love a director, if they kind of have a working relationship with the DP. I'm going to Google that later. Okay.
No, me too.
What is the weirdest note that you've ever gotten on something you've written?
I would say my wonderful parents give me wonderful notes, and a parent is such an interesting person to give a note because they identify so much with you. So sometimes they're like pretty hardcore about how passionately they feel. And my dad was like, okay, actually, before the story starts, you should have a Star Wars style scrolling text that explains to people what sororities even are. And I was like, that's crazy, man.
Oh my goodness. That is the best, most hilarious note. I thought it was just my parents. You are not alone, Emily. God bless the parents that support our crazy artist dreamer visions, but come in with these notes that are like, do you understand what you just said? You would turn that off. You wouldn't even read that. Like, what? How? Like, what? But thanks, Dad. Love you.
Yeah.
But with the best intentions. So, you know.
Yes.
And then what is your preference for writing environment? Do you like cafes or really quiet places, home, or is the bed too close? Coffee, tea, snacks? Like, what's your favorite cozy writing environment?
Great question. You got to know this about me. I'm not sitting anywhere for more than about 25 minutes. So I got to write at home so that I can be constantly changing locations. I do have peppermint tea. There is a candle going. But yeah, I'm writing, sitting with a laptop in places one would never think to sit before.
I love that. Writers are all so uniquely specific in their things. I'm big on a candle too.
Ooh, nice.
And I have to have coffee. Even if I don't need it, I need the aroma near me.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. We all have our quirks.
Yeah.
Okay. And so this is a little bit of a deeper question, but do you have a personal mission statement as a filmmaker? Like what is the thing you would say you want to do most with your storytelling? Whose voices do you feel like you want to spend your energy amplifying, and why? Like, how do you see that impacting the world? Like, kind of what's your filmmaker mission, storyteller mission? Because you storytell in more than one way.
Yeah. The way I've been saying it recently, with so much irony, so prepare for what you're about to hear, but I say that I write stories for evil sluts. And what I mean by that is like people who society or people in power paint as an evil slut. Like I honestly have a lot of compassion for somebody who might be labeled an evil slut by someone with their own ulterior motive. So evil sluts listening, I'm one of you. I love you. You deserve your own stories.
I love that. Was so not a cliche, expected, heard it all before, pageantry of filmmaking type of answer, Emily. That was absolutely amazing. And I love it. And honestly, now that I've got your contact, I'm like, if I have any evil slut,
Please.
like lead character ideas, I'm going to send them your way. Like, hey, see if something comes up in your mind for this. Because I do think we are living in the perfect time. I mean, it's a crazy time, but we're also living in the perfect time for there to be more loud voices for the people who are labeled and marginalized in these crazy ways that are, like we said at the beginning, very outdated structures. I mean, what really even is a slut? Why is she always a female? Like, let's just get into that. And then, like, what is evil? We're in a very interesting time of storytelling where villain stories are being told. They are the wickeds and the jokers, where we're getting into everyone is a complex, layered individual. And from their point of view, their actions are in the best interest of their life. When they're uplifted as a hero, we're like, yeah. And when they're written as evil, we're like, boo. But like, let's get into the gray. It's not so black and white. So absolutely love that. That is a sound bite for the podcast commercial. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with, what you're working on, where they can find your work, follow you and keep up with you, or any lasting words for our listeners?
Absolutely. You can follow me at Gremily, GRRREMILY. And I just redid my personal site. It's very beautiful. EmilyDraper.net. Check it out. I will have all my work up there very shortly. And I just want to say thank you so much, listeners. Thank you so much, Zakiya. I had so much fun in this conversation. I love what you're doing. And thank you so much for platforming indie filmmakers.
Yeah, the Richmond Film Network is really expansive in trying to give a voice to independent film. I mean, like true independent film, like $15,000 and $5,000 of my own money independent film, not, no shade, The Brutalist. Loved it. Not an independent film. So thank you for being a true independent artist and just using your voice to amplify the voices of others in a way that's so unique to you, that just encompasses all your life experience actually, and then, you know, your training and whatnot too, and all of your networking, for sharing so transparently with us. We all get better when we get to talk to people like you. So thank you, Emily, for coming on, and we can't wait to have you back, girl. You got to drop something new, and then we'll interview you again for that one.
Amazing. Richmond, coolest city in America. You can put
hey,
that there.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time, guys.
Thanks.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Richmond Film Network podcast. Thanks to our guest and to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and share. Tune in next week to see who's on the RFN pod. Until then, keep the cameras rolling.